All right, let's move right into chapter 11. Eugenia learns a hard lesson. Chapter 10 left off where Patterson Quincy is on his way to their summer house looking for his wife, Eugenia. He has some strong suspicion that she possibly may have young Will with her. And so let's get right into it. Here we go. Eugenia learns a hard lesson. On the spacious veranda of the summer house, Eugenia Quincy lay on a chaise lounge and looked out over the lake. On her first day of what was to be a change of scenery, she was tired. She watched Clara and the small boy who walked beside her along the water's edge. After thinking over the events of yesterday, Eugenia wondered uneasily if she had done the right thing. Very soon after they had reached the open road, Will had fallen asleep on Clara's lap. Eugenia was pleased. "He's going to be very easy to take care of, Clara," she said unhappily. "I guess children that age sleep a lot. Have you ever had charge of a baby like him?" "No, Mum," the girl had replied. "I was the youngest in my family." She hesitated and then inquired, "What do we feed him?" Eugenia hadn't considered that. "Why, I suppose whatever we eat. I'm sure Greta has put in enough for all of us. He can't eat a whole lot." This, she soon discovered, was an understatement. Will wouldn't eat anything. Shortly after their arrival at the lake, Will had awakened. Seeing only strange faces, he started to cry. Allie, Will wants Allie, he had sobbed. "What's Allie?" Eugenia asked anxiously. "Is it something to eat? Give him a cookie, Clara." The cookie was offered, but Will pushed it away. "Ethan? Allie?" He looked around frantically and heard huge tears ran down his face. "For goodness sake, Clara, give him whatever he wants. We can't have that wailing all afternoon," Eugenia had complained. "I don't know what he wants," Clara replied, desperation creeping into her voice. "He probably misses his family. Oh, Mom, we shouldn't have taken him away from the home." "Well, we did, so we'll have to make the best of it. Find something to cheer him up. He's making me nervous." Clara had done her best, Eugenia was forced to admit, but Will wasn't happy. Throughout the afternoon, he continued to cry, adding Simon to his list of grievances. When he had finally sobbed himself to sleep again, Eugenia was relieved. "Well, that's over. Do they all do that, Clara?" "I don't know, but they all need clean clothes, and we don't have any of those." "Oh dear," Eugenia flopped down on the sofa and put her hand on her forehead. "I'm getting a terrible headache, Clara. You'll have to take care of it." "Go and get some." Without opening her eyes, she waved her hand feebly at the girl. When Clara didn't move, she sat up in surprise. "Well, what are you waiting for? You better go before he wakes up again. You certainly don't expect me to do anything with him." "I never bought a little boy's clothes before, and I got no way to get to the village. We can't both go unless we take him with us." "Oh, bother," Eugenia grumbled. "Why didn't you think of that before we got here?" Clara remained silent, as if knowing that whatever she answered, it was sure to be the wrong thing. "I suppose I'll have to go. There's probably not a thing in that village for a child to wear." Eugenia flung herself out of the house, muttering about inefficient help, and headed for the little store closest to the lake. She returned sometime later bearing a shirt and short pants. They were obviously several sizes too large, but she threw them down on the table. "There, when he wakes up, you can put them on him." Clara stared at the outfit. "Where's the underwear?" "Underwear?" "Yes, Mom. He needs more underpants and an undershirt. The one he's wearing are sort of wet." Eugenia was horrified. "Didn't you take him to the bathroom?" "He's been asleep. Did you want me to wake him up?" No, of course not. He'll start howling again." She sighed irritably. "I'll have to go back. I certainly wish you could think of things like that before I run myself to a frazzle. You don't have anything else to do." Clara ducked her head. "Yes, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom." "You should be. I brought you along to be of some help." The rest of the afternoon and the night hadn't gone any better. Several times Eugenia heard the boy cry. Then she was forced to listen to the creak of the rocking chair until he fell asleep again in Clara's arms. No wonder Eugenia was so fatigued this morning. Thankfully, though, aside from a few hiccuping sobs, Will hadn't cried since Clara had gotten him up, but he still refused to eat. Eugenia moved restlessly on the chaise lounge. This wasn't the way she had pictured her advent into motherhood. The boy regarded her solemnly, with a small thumb firmly planted in his mouth. Although he had stopped asking for Allie or Ethan, his big eyes held disapproval. It was most disconcerting. What else could he possibly want, she demanded of Clara. He won't eat, and he's only taken a bit of milk. Don't children eat 3 meals a day like everyone else? Yes, Mom, I think so, Clara replied. Her eyes were heavy with lack of sleep, and she was bouncing Will on her knee in an attempt to entertain him. Maybe he's homesick. Maybe we should take him back to the Briars. Eugenia considered this and shook her head. We can't do that. Mr. Quincy would wonder why we returned so soon. She looked sharply at Clara. I don't want him to know about this. Not yet, at any rate. Yes, Mum. So take the boy down to the lake for a walk. Take a spoon to dig in the sand or something. Yes, Mum. It was going to be a long few days ahead. She couldn't focus her attention on reading or handwork when she had to be concerned about the child. Eugenia didn't have long to indulge in self-pity. A crunch on the driveway announced the arrival of a familiar limousine, and she sprang to her feet. The door opened and Gridley stepped out. Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon. What? She blustered. Gridley held open the rear door. Patterson emerged and walked toward the veranda where Eugenia was sitting. Good day, my dear. Patterson, what are you doing here? I thought you were too busy to get away. Eugenia did her best to hide her dismay. I found that I had a short time free. I shall have to return this evening, but I wanted to check and see that all was well here. He ascended the stairs deliberately and sank into a chair beside the chaise lounge. Lie down again, Eugenia. You look exhausted. Patterson looked around with seeming indifference. The trees rustled slightly in the breeze and the lake glistened in the afternoon sun. He watched the water for a moment in silence. Isn't that Clara walking along the shore? He finally asked. Why, yes, I believe it is. And who does she have with her? It looks like a small boy. She didn't answer. Eugenia? She had thought to face him defiantly, but when she raised her eyes to meet his, she crumpled at his stern expression. Eugenia, why on earth did you bring that boy up here without letting anyone know you had him? Don't you realize that you could be prosecuted for kidnapping? Kidnapping, Eugenia was horrified. I didn't kidnap him. I just borrowed him for a few days. I was going to take him back. Didn't you think that the people at the home would be looking for him for a few days? She waved an arm. Oh, Patterson, he's an orphan. They've got more of those than they need now, and I did ask Mr. Lehman if I might take him to get acquainted, you know. And what did Mr. Lehman say? Eugenia tossed her head in disdain. Oh, he said he thought the boy was too little to be away from the people he knew, but I didn't agree with him. The child is too young to know the difference. But even as she said the words, Eugenia recalled the boy's tear-stained face and the fact that he hadn't eaten since their arrival. Nevertheless, Patterson said, he must be returned as quickly as possible. The people at the home, and especially his older brother, are frantic over his disappearance. Oh, very well. Send Gridley down to the lake to get him, and you can take him back with you. No, Eugenia, I will not take him and make explanations for you. This is your responsibility, and I suggest that you undertake it immediately. He rose and started for the car. Patterson, Eugenia gasped, following him. I can't do that. What will I say? Besides, I'm quite sure that Mr. Lehman dislikes me. Are you, my dear? I wonder why. Gridley closed the door of the limousine, and Patterson leaned out the window to speak to his wife. If I were you, I would start at once. I'll see you at dinner. Eugenia watched as the car turned onto the road, leading back to Briarley. She was furious at Patterson for putting her in this position. She was angry with George Lehman for refusing her permission to take the child when she requested it. If he hadn't been so stubborn, this never would have happened. She stormed down to the edge of the lawn to summon Clara. If the girl had seen the car, she would know that Eugenia had been ordered home. How humiliating this was. Get our things together, Clara, Eugenia snapped. We're leaving. We'll take the boy back to the orphanage where he belongs. She regarded Will with disfavor. I can't have him starving to death while he's in my care. I don't understand why you find it so difficult to get food into a 2-year-old child. She gestured angrily. Well, move along. We haven't all day to stand around. Yes, Mom. If you'll watch the boy, I'll pack the car. Put him in the chair on the veranda. I'll see that he doesn't fall out. But hurry. If he starts to cry, you'll have to come and get him. Dreadful child, Eugenia thought. If they were all like that, she was fortunate not to have any. It would be a relief to get rid of him. But now another matter called for serious thought. What was she going to say to Mr. Lehman? As soon as the car was packed and they were on the road, Eugenia gave that problem her full attention. Perhaps she could set Will on the inside of the fence where she had picked him up and go on home. This idea was abandoned almost as soon as it formed. Patterson was sure to demand a full accounting this evening, and she knew what he would say if he discovered that she hadn't faced George Lehman. Patterson was a kind man, but his sense of justice was spread evenly over everyone, including his wife. As the miles went by, nothing acceptable came to mind. She pictured George Lehman's face if she simply announced that she had taken the boy out of the yard and her husband made her bring him back. It was unthinkable, but no explanation occurred to her that wouldn't bring the blame squarely down upon her own head. There was no sound from the back seat. Probably the boy had fallen asleep again. He didn't have to have a story read to explain his disappearance. When the car stopped in front of the gate at Briar Lane, Eugenia was no closer to a solution than when they had left the lake. Reluctantly, she stepped out of the car, removed her driving gloves, and laid them on the seat. Followed by Clara with a sleeping Will in her arms, she began the long trek to the front door of the Briars. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. The girl who opened the door took in the scene and shrieked, "Will, he's here! Here's Will, he's back!" and ran to summon Matron. The noise brought Mr. Lehman rushing to the hallway. Before Eugenia could open her mouth, he was shaking her hand and smiling broadly. "Oh, Mrs. Quincy, you found him. You'll never know how grateful we are to you. His brothers and sister have been so upset, as we all have, and you've brought him back. How can I ever thank you?" Eugenia leaned against the wall in relief. That was it, of course. She had found the child wandering in the road and had brought him back. Everyone was happy, and that was the end of the matter. Will had awakened and was crying again. His eager stranglehold on Matron when she took him from Clara's arms brought unexpected tears to Eugenia's eyes. "Mr. Lehman, I wish to speak with you a moment, if I may," she said. Of course. He ushered her into his office and closed the door. When Eugenia Quincy emerged sometime later from the Briars, she felt drained but calm. For the first time in her life, she had admitted to herself and to someone else that she had been wrong, and she had misjudged George Lehman. He had been most understanding and forgiving. Now she would go home and throw herself on the mercy of the court. And that is the end of chapter 11.